Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a very special Comics Week in Review television edition. I'm Steve McGaul, editor in chief of TMStash.com, and with me is the wonderful crew of TMStash.com: Ed Garrett, Joseph Gagel, Nick Duran. How we doing, guys?
Hey.
Great.
Well, we thought it was fitting now that the May sweeps are finally over, and we have wrapped up all of the amazing television series that have gone on, like American Idol, and no, I'm sorry. The Flash, Arrow, Gotham, Agents of Shield, all wrapped up with Flash and Arrow, and that just wrapping up this week along with Agents of Shield. It was a pretty awesome week for TV. Ed's vote won apparently because he's been geeking out about the Arrow all week.
Flash.
Flash.
Flash
is it.
I thought Arrow was just as good. But
Arrow was
I'm
good,
just
but the
saying.
Flash has me still geeking out 24 hours later.
I had to give you some trouble. So yes, Ed's been freaking out about the Flash, of course, Mr. Barry Allen himself, and it was pretty. I'm surprised they took this season as far as they did.
They really did, and they set this thing up to end. And there'll be spoilers talking about the Flash here if you've not seen it. But the way they've ended that show, they've left themselves open to sort of take the show in any direction they want, because you've had enough twists in here, especially with Eddie Thawne doing what he did, that sort of wiped out the Reverse Flash of existence. Although we know Tom Cavanaugh will be back next year, they can take this any way they want. They are telling us in some interviews. I think Grant Gustin was interviewed by TV Guide, and he mentioned that the helmet that we saw pop out of the wormhole that looked like Jay Garrick's winged helmet is a foreshadowing of a potential Earth 2 storyline for next year. I'm really geeking out about a Flash of Two Worlds kind of story here. So that will be exceptionally good. There were also a lot of little Easter eggs all through the show.
So wait, explain to me how that would work, having a Flash of Two Worlds here.
Okay, if you go back to the Silver Age, what they did was explained the Golden Age heroes by saying that they really existed on a parallel world that occupied the same space as our world, but was on a different vibrational plane, whatever in the world that happens to be. And that Barry Allen accidentally somehow hit the right vibration and wound up on Earth 2 and met Jay Garrick, the Golden Age Flash, who was in semi-retirement at the time. And that started a whole lot of storylines back in the 60s, where every summer the Justice Society of America, which was the Golden Age superhero group, and the Justice League of America, the Silver Age group, would meet for a huge crossover. And as a kid, I loved this dearly. And there's still a lot of Justice Society fans to this day. So what they've done here is that as Barry Allen accesses the Speed Force, opens up this weird wormhole through time, it apparently opened up infinite timelines and their version of some interdimensional potential here, where we may yet see Earth 2 and get to see the Golden Age Jay Garrick in the TV version of the Flash and Arrowverse next season. So that will be pretty cool. But they've put a lot of timey-wimey stuff into this. When he was going through the Speed Force, we got to see a potential Killer Frost from Caitlin Snow. We also got to see the Flash Museum, if you look really quick, which is a big deal in the comics. In Central City, there's this museum dedicated to the Flash, who's such a great hero. You got to see a scene that's potentially from Legends of Tomorrow, which is a mid-season, next season show that'll come up that'll have a lot of folks in it. And there were some other ones that flashed by, pardon the pun, so fast that you really couldn't see them, even going back and hitting pause. So they were throwing Easter eggs all through this thing.
So I have to stop you there for a second, because since we know Ed's been reading this since the Silver Age. So what? I haven't read a single Flash book in my life ever. Ever. But I still really like the series. So I'm gonna be kind of the yang to your yin there, Ed. So and I'm interested as to Nick and Joe's kind of perspective on this Flash series, as far as, comparing it to what we have in other TV. I mean, obviously this started with the Arrow, and more even further back, Supernatural doing so well, kind of spurred this with CW. So what are your thoughts on what CW is doing with the Flash?
I think it's
Bueller?
great. Yeah, I'll go. Um, I think it's great. I think I'm not a big Flash fan, but after the New 52, I was like, well, let me give this guy a go. And so I enjoy him, but I enjoy a different continuity than Ed does. But I also enjoy the internet, so I have looked up a lot of this stuff, or just asked Ed. And I think it's good. I think the show has managed to capture an audience that isn't just Ed. It has been able to kind of tell a good story without having to know the backstory. What?
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because Ed kind of talking about how there was the parallel universes back in the Silver Age, kind of resonated with me, because all I have is the TV show, and when you kind of say that, they did kind of harken back to that a little bit in the TV show when they were talking about, when Wells was talking about how he's from the future and how you can go back and forth between time with speed, and he kind of talks about there being these parallel shifts and how he can go back and save his mother, and how all that turned out. And it was really, really cool kind of how they did all that, and how it sounds like they kind of, they're not saying totally true to what happened, I guess, in the books. Ed, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it sounds like they're kind of hinting back at that.
They really have not. I mean, there are key differences between the books and the show. They sort of almost went to Flashpoint with him going back to save his mother, and in a way, I'm sort of glad that he didn't, because nobody would understand the Flashpoint storyline played out on TV.
I really liked how they did it.
You didn't want a season 2 Flashpoint?
No, but I will tell you, I like the Flashpoint series in the books. But here's the thing, and I think, Nick, you and Stephen both are really hitting at this. It's good writing. It's good acting. These are great stories because they go beyond just the obvious Flash fan base. You've got some really good actors with some really good acting chops that have been in some other things. Like Joe West. The actor playing him was big in Rent. Was big in Law and Order for several years. Tom Cavanaugh had his own series, Ed, for a number of years, and been on a lot of other things. The guy playing Martin Stein has been in a lot of movies and TV shows. You're getting some in the non-title characters. You're getting some people who have really good acting chops. And as it turns out, Grant Gustin is a really good actor too. And the actress playing Iris West has really developed well over the course of the year. I wasn't as happy with her in the early episodes, but she's turned into a great actress. And all of them brought their A games for this finale. So it's good writing, it's good acting, and where there are differences with the books, they're acceptable differences, and I like what they've done with it. So they're having the kind of show that everyone can like, and as opposed to like the '90s Flash TV series that starred John Wesley Shipp, who by the way is Henry Allen in this series. That series really appealed more to just hardcore Flash fans. This series appeals to a more general audience.
And 10-year-old Nick.
Yeah, there you go.
So, I think, and just like you were saying, the writing, there were some moments, and this is where the spoilers are going to come out, there were some moments where I was like, damn, that is just cool. Like, when he rolls in to save his mother, and his self just says, stop.
Yeah.
And I thought that was cool. Jay Garrett's helmet coming out, that was really awesome. It was...
By the way, I thought
it's well thought out.
Even that stop is a little bit of an Easter egg, because there's a classic Flash cover where it stopped and he's got his hand out like this, sort of warning about not going to the end of the book. They were throwing in a lot of Easter eggs. Of course, Jeff Johns is real involved with this series, And they're throwing in a lot of little things. And of course, they threw in an Easter egg there, a little bit of confirming that Cisco is going to have meta powers, metahuman powers with being Vibe. They just haven't given him his code name yet. So there was
come up with his
You mean
own?
he hasn't came up with his own code name yet?
He will. But there were so many twists in here that I wasn't expecting. Eddie Thawne's sacrifice being the one that really shocked me the most.
That was good writing right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that really was. So they did a good job planning this one out. I had ridiculously high expectations for this show, and they exceeded those expectations. So I'm real thrilled with it. It's just that at the end of the show, the way it ended with him racing in to do this thing, I was literally screaming "No!" when they cut to the credits, because like crap, I've got to wait till next season now. And I really wanted to see what would happen next. So they did a good job of hooking us for the next season.
I think I could have gone for a season 2 Flashpoint, Ed.
Well, it would have been interesting, but I'm sort of glad they're not going there. At the same time, they're going to sort of have this, because if he goes into the Singularity and changes things up with Eddie Thawne's body being sucked into the Singularity, they've got an out to bring him back. If Tom Cavanaugh is going to show up, he either will be the original Harrison Wells, not having died, or he'll still be the Reverse Flash. So we'll see.
So Steven, and I don't know, Joe, do you know what Flashpoint is? Maybe for the listeners too. Flashpoint is what happens when Barry Allen finally does save his mom's life and changes the world into a very dark, makes Gotham even darker. It turns the world into a dark place. Batman never exists. And they actually used Flashpoint to springboard into the New 52.
It was not originally meant to springboard into the New 52. The original intent was to come back to the regular Earth, but in the middle of the planning for it, they realized that was a good way to bring in the New 52. But the Flashpoint world was horrible in every way, and that's where he had to make the choice to give up saving his mother in order to save the world, because it was literally about to fall apart and die. But it was really well done. The tie-ins were good, especially the Batman Flashpoint was good, where it was Thomas Wayne being Batman. But yeah, I'm fine with the TV show going on its own direction. And the way they keep portraying the different guys, it just keeps getting better every week. So I'm really looking forward to next season.
So yeah, I mean, as a whole, I think CW is kind of hitting this out of the park. They did it for 6-7 years with Supernatural. They picked right up where they left off, and even better with the Arrow, and are proving to be even better with the Flash, and the way they're treating this next year. It sounds like next year we're getting a new series that's going to have.
It'll be Captain Cold, Heatwave, Hawk Girl, White Canary, and which is interesting because White Canary in the comics is a villain, but this is going to be the original Black Canary for the series, coming back from the dead through the Lazarus Pit, showing up. And Rip Hunter, who's going to be played by the guy who played Rory on Doctor Who. So from one traveling character to another. And they'll show up at mid-season next year.
The Atom.
Oh, the Atom, that's right. Ray Palmer.
Yeah, so I like what they're doing. I think it's fun. It's what the movie universe should be, and as we've said before.
Oh, yes.
It's every bit what the movie universe should be, so we'll see what happens with Justice League.
And I came into this, fresh off of 2 great seasons of Arrow, expecting that kind of quality, and they did. And what really made it work for me was it wasn't a carbon copy. It wasn't, they didn't try to tell, they tried to tell their own story with their own attitude, but at the same time, they were able to incorporate a super amount of bad guys and characters, and they were able to incorporate so much with the crossovers. They had 2 or 3 crossovers in one season, and to me, those were some of the best episodes because it just flowed so well, and now they're going to use this mid-season as a kind of thing towards, and I'm willing to bet, we just talked about the White Canary, we'll probably see that be developed in the first half of the Arrow season 4, while they probably work on some of the multiverse stuff, building towards this, future Legends of Tomorrow type kind of thing, and that's even going to intertwine the shows even more, creating this outstanding universe that Stephen, like you just said, the movie universe is just going to be missing out on completely.
Right, and actually that buildup has started now because the time bubble that the Reverse Flash was planning to use to go home was a Rip Hunter design.
Yep.
So we're already getting a few hints of next year. And Rip Hunter, by the way, is a character that goes all the way back to the Silver Age as well, because Rip Hunter Time Master was a book I used to buy when I was a kid. And in current continuity, he's actually the son of Booster Gold, which is another character I would love to see show up for DC television. He would be a perfect character for it.
I think there's a problem with that. I don't know what it is. I've seen people talk about, for some reason, the Blue Beetle and Booster Gold they can't use on TV for some reason or another.
That would be a shame. That really would. There may be some rights issues they got to deal with, but
I think that's what it is. But I agree. Those two characters would be really cool if they were able to, especially with this, future stuff. Oh yeah, and the villain is, what's his name? Help me out here. Vandal Savage.
Yes. And Vandal Savage is a great, because that's an immortal villain. For those who are not regular readers of comics, who are more into the TV world, Vandal Savage is a guy who was a caveman who became immortal, and now he's pretty smart, but he's also almost unbeatable. He is immortal and proven to be a real villain for a lot of folks, including the Flashes. He was even a big villain for Wally West. He appeared in the very first Flash issue that starred Wally West when they rebooted it after Crisis on Infinite Earths. So he would be a really good one to have to deal with.
All right, so Ed got his wish. We spent more than half the show talking about the Flash.
Can't help it. Let's talk some others.
We'll bounce around here a little bit just because Nick hasn't seen the Arrow, but we will get back to the Arrow. So let's jump over to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. here for a minute. And with where we do have an actual movie universe, and we saw some great crossovers with Age of Ultron. There are a couple episodes that led up to and then picked up right after, and they all kind of fell in sync with what's happening in the show. It wasn't like an interruption, like, hey, we just decided to toss this in and it goes along with the movie. No, it fits with the entire storyline of the movie. Who is it over at Marvel? Kevin Feige?
Kevin Feige.
Feige. Sorry.
It's Feige.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that he has control over the TV show as much as he has over the movies, but they have everything on such a lockdown, and I understand why this is probably a pain in the ass for the likes of Joss Whedon, who do have a lot of creative control over their properties, but as a whole, it's been amazing to watch. So,
and with Kevin Feige, see, that's the one thing that we just mentioned with DC. That's the one thing they don't have. They don't have a Kevin Feige who's holding the reins on everybody. And
they have Kevin Smith, but he's not really involved.
Yeah, exactly. but that's been the real glue, is that, and he's also a big fan. You can tell in the interviews that you see him in, and when he talks, he knows what he's talking about. He's passionate about this, and he wants to. He's got a vision, and even people like Joss Whedon aren't going to alter his vision. Edgar Wright did not alter his vision, and Ant-Man looks to be amazing. I think, and it's going to be out next month. I think the 17th of July,
yep.
And which will cap off the end of Phase 2, and. But before we get into anything like that, we were talking about S.H.I.E.L.D. and how they had the trying to remember what her name was, Raina, I believe, had the vision of the metal androids at the end of the episode right before the Age of Ultron, which paved right into it. We saw Coulson, talking about Fury. He called what's her name? Maria Hill, and said, we got to call the Avengers in, and then boom, we got the movie. And of course, during the movie, we see Nick Fury with a helicarrier at the last moment with some help, And of course, throughout this season, second half of the season of S.H.I.E.L.D., we've heard Coulson mention the Theta Protocol, kind of like, oh, what's that? What's that? What's that? So we found out after Age of Ultron, the Theta Protocol was indeed the reappropriation of that helicarrier and some other stuff to help out Fury. So that was a really neat little plug for Age of Ultron, not having to involve him too much, because you really can't involve this group too much because the Avengers still believe Coulson is dead. So you kind of have just the right amount of involvement, and then we get right back to the season finale, which was a 2-hour, and it was pretty much an all-out war between the Inhumans and S.H.I.E.L.D. A lot of people died, a lot of cool characters that we get to see, like Mr. Hyde. We got to see Sky's dad turn it, kind of Hulk out a little bit, if you will. We got to see Sky's mother for who she really is as she started the war against S.H.I.E.L.D. My favorite character died, Gordon, the teleporter with no eyes. I thought he was too cool of a character to die off, but that's me, I guess. But the really neat stuff happened right at the end, where S.H.I.E.L.D. has had this object from the Inhumans, and no one really knows what it is, and I can't even really find what it is, because I think it's something new that they're creating. And at the end, we see this thing swallow up Simmons.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And then just turn back, because we see it go from a solid block into this liquid state and then back to a solid block, and it swallowed her up. Now, this has led to a lot of speculation, and I think this is really thin, but you never know. A lot of people say it could be a symbiote, but I highly doubt that. But you never know, because it could have been one of those things where they said, well, we could always use this if we ever get Spider-Man back, and then we got Spider-Man back, and then it was like, well, do you want to throw it in there? So that's a really big mystery, because the symbiote is of space origin. It would be really neat, I guess, if it was. But the other big thing was that the shards of Terrigen were lost into the ocean, which leaked into the ocean, into fish, and then were processed into fish oil.
Fish
vitamins.
Oil and food and everything else.
So it's wow, that was just kind of like a mind blow, like, oh, what's going to happen now? So and of course Coulson losing his arm to continue the Star Wars tributes that they do. If you notice, most of the Avengers and all the Marvel movies, somebody loses one of their hands. It continues in this, and that was probably the biggest what the hell moment, and it's just kind of like, that was like a Walking Dead moment, kind of thing, where it's just like, boom, what? So what did you guys think?
I liked it a lot. I mean, I'm with you on all fronts. I like the way that it's integrating. I like the way that it's the story's going. I like how it's bringing in the Inhumans, and it's really kind of teaching the audience who the Inhumans are. So for people that haven't read Inhumans, know what is going on. So
and that's a really good point, because we've got the Inhuman movie coming up in 2019. But you really just can't do a movie about the Inhumans. You have to slowly introduce them, because they have the Inhuman, and then you have their creators, which were the Kree. And we've already seen the Kree in Guardians of the Galaxy as Ronan the Accuser. They're the blue people. So it's just this slow build that they're just adding layer upon layer. It's like an onion.
Nick, what'd you think?
Of the S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Yeah.
I don't watch the S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, he's too busy watching Survivor.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, zing.
My only comment was going to be, Marvel does TV shows?
Kind of like DC. Do they do movies?
Yeah, really? You got me there.
And then, of course, on the side, Daredevil I thought was really good this year, and that's another added piece to the puzzle.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about Daredevil. It's because I haven't watched it yet. That's why.
I've just seen the premiere episode on Daredevil. I got to catch up on Netflix, but that first episode was amazing.
I saw a couple. They were really good.
Yeah, I have to watch
The whole
it. I've heard
season
a
is pretty
bad
much
thing.
like that.
I haven't met a single person that hasn't been like, "Oh, that's an awesome show."
Well, and that I want to say it was a week and a half after the release that, or no, maybe it was just a week. They said we already got season 2 coming. So that was pretty.
Yeah, it was before. Yeah, it was right when it came out. They're like, "Yep," and season 2.
So I was like, that's got to be a record. So
Yeah. Well, on Free Comic Book Day, there were a lot of cosplayers doing that Netflix version of Daredevil's costume too.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. It's really good. I like what they're doing. I don't want to take too much more time on this because we are destroying time on a lot of this stuff. But so let's move on and talk a little bit more. Let's go back to the DC world and talk Gotham a little bit. Another great show, completely produced by Fox. Didn't really know what to expect going into this with Fox. Its first foray into the really comic book television, as Fox Television is completely different from Fox Studios. So they're not one and the same. So it was really cool how they decided to really do all this, and even had the balls to introduce a new character, Fish Mooney, and bring in Jada Pinkett Smith as a character that doesn't exist in the comics, and integrate her.
She annoys me.
Yeah, but I like what they did, and to jump right into what happened to the finale. I mean, to see at the end of the spoiler, if you haven't seen it by now, shame on you. To see the Penguin just push her off the building and drop into the water, and obviously we all knew that she was gonna have to probably die at the end of this year because we weren't getting another second season out of Jada Pinkett Smith. She only had a 1-year contract, but so she's pretty much dead. But it opens it up. We assume her to be dead, but she still fell into water, so you never know. They might try to bring her back. But that whole ending was awesome, with Maroni getting capped in the face, and then who was it? It's like, I'm retiring. Drawing a blank on a name. This is bad. He's like the main bad guy in all the Batman. That's not the Penguin, the Joker.
Falcone.
Yeah, thank you. Having a brain fart.
Well, that's okay. He's not athletes.
Falcone goes, I'm retiring. I'm out. I'm done. Penguin's like, I'm king of the city. I run Gotham. Awesome.
It's okay to forget Falcone. His biggest deal in the comics is that he's the one who killed Dick Grayson's parents.
Right.
And he got the scratch from Selina Kyle. I love that. That series. I think it was in Rome.
My favorite arc from this season was the Ogre, the 3-episode Ogre arc. I thought that was really intense, really good.
I don't have a complaint with the whole season. I think there were some slow parts that kind of had a few ups and downs, but overall I think it was really good. And it looks like it's getting picked up for a second season. It hasn't been canceled yet.
I think it already has, right?
Yeah,
it's picked up.
Yeah, so I liked everything that they did. It's sad that it's in a separate universe from what's happening in CW and that they won't come together, but it is what it is. CW is still kicking ass and taking names as far as I'm concerned, as far as comic book television goes.
Be on the lookout next month, because everything with Constantine's contracts runs out next month.
Yeah, and the one thing to keep in mind also along with that is that with Marvel's success with Daredevil on Netflix and what they're all doing and the power of Disney behind them, it's quite possible that we could see more Netflix series around Marvel characters.
Well, I know the CW is very interested in Constantine, and whether or not they can pick up the show or some of the characters, I've already read the show creators. They say and they're creating their little brainstorm room. They've got so many exciting ideas, but they just have to wait because they need all the legal stuff to be all on the line before they can do anything. But they've got a lot of exciting ideas for for him on Arrow.
That's the one place where I'm a little nervous about the Supergirl show coming up next year on CBS. It's that you can, for a CW, they can live with a different level of viewership than a CBS can. Because CBS is not going to compete with. CW is not going to compete with CBS for the sheer volume of viewers. And so ratings that would be great on CW might not be great on CBS. And so if Supergirl comes in, it could be a great show and still get canceled. But the trailer we've seen so far looks pretty good. But we'll have to see how it turns out in the real show. I think that's what happened with Constantine. Putting on NBC, they had greater ratings, but I think CW would be happy with those ratings.
And it was on Friday night too.
Yeah, that makes it tough.
Yeah, Friday night's not as bad as it used to be. It used to be the death slot, but it's been pretty powerful in the last couple of years. So it's not as bad as it really used to be. It's not the old death slot that it once was. All right, our last and final show that we've yet to talk about. Back to talking CW. Nick, I'm sorry, we must talk about the Arrow, and you must go watch it because what the hell is wrong with you? Oh yeah, you're too busy watching Survivor. I forgot.
Oh, I'm gonna check out for a minute.
So Nick's checking out. We'll wave. We're not gonna be long. We're already at 30 minutes, and so the Arrow season finale was pretty fantastic. I thought it was almost as good as the Flash. I like kind of the back and forth that they did with the Arrow. Is he bad, and did he actually decide to be Ra's al Ghul, or who is he going to be? Who is Oliver Queen now? So what did you guys think of this?
I thought it was pretty good. I'm not going to lie, I was a little surprised by the way it ended because it was almost if we don't get picked up for another season, Oliver rides off into the sunset and the team, and it's like he passed the torch to his team and said, I can never be the Arrow again, blah 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 blah, and I'm just going to go off. I kind of see him like Batman in the sense that he doesn't get a happy ending. So that kind of threw me at the very end a little bit, but they've already signed on for a 4th season. Everybody's coming back. So, maybe next season, a lot of people seem to believe that we're going to see him actually become the Green Arrow. So I don't know, but I thought it was a great finale. Had a lot of action. We hear a little bit more about Damien Darko, who a lot of people think is going to be one of, if not maybe the main baddie in the next season. He's basically, for those who don't know and don't watch the show, he was kind of like the best friend of Ra's al Ghul, and they were training partners. And when it came time to be the new Ra's al Ghul, it was between those two guys, and Ra's al Ghul won, but he kind of took off with some of the faction of the League of Shadows and took a little bit of the Lazarus water himself. So this guy's out and about, and they even had a little touch on him in this last episode, and I don't think that's the last we're going to see of him, and maybe that's even the Lazarus pit that we'll see the White Canary come out of.
So what do we think of the new Ra's al Ghul?
Yes, that was good.
That was good.
I was a little surprised by that. Well, not really.
I wasn't surprised at all.
I actually expected him to die in this episode.
I did not. I thought that's kind of. I thought it was kind of predictable that was kind of the play going all along when he was working with Oliver Queen. So,
and then we get a new Red Arrow in Speedy, who a lot of people, including myself, from the very beginning, thought he, through the series, he's called his sister Speedy. Well, he called the Red Arrow Speedy, which in the comics I don't think was his sister. But it was neat that he finally, that little bit came full circle.
Who is his sister in the comics?
Well, yeah, there's the thing: is in the comics, the original Speedy was Roy Harper, who later became Arsenal.
Exactly, and they kind of did a reverse of that in the beginning, but it kind of came full circle, and it's her now, but it's still not him. And but I guess it's a way to keep Arsenal on the show without having Roy Harper. But
they taking some creative leniencies here by making Roy Harper or making you think that he is making him the Red Arrow. I don't know. I guess he was the Red Arrow, but now he's not the Red Arrow, and now his sister is officially has the Red Arrow jacket, and now is she gonna be? What's your character? So. Speedy.
Yeah, they played some creative. Now, Speedy, Green Arrow actually is a Golden Age character, and Speedy was his sidekick way back then. And then he was a founding member of the Teen Titans, and then later became Arsenal. There was a lot of other storylines to go with him, including one where Harper had dealt with a drug addiction. But yeah, they've taken some creative licenses with the comic storylines here. Like Joe, the thing that I was still surprised on, and Nick, if you're listening, you might want to unplug here.
I jump in and out.
Okay. I'm going to say something that'll be a spoiler here. But at the ending of that did surprise me too, because it really did seem more like Joe said, it was like they were almost expecting to be canceled, and here's our happy ending on there, and it just seemed to be jarring compared to the rest of the show, because the rest of the show was so dramatic, so action-packed, so kick-ass, and then you have this sort of almost sappy ending.
And so much to the point where as soon as it was over, here's the executive producer telling us, by the way, it's not over, guys. We got some things coming up next season that's going to be fun, kind of just reassuring us that this isn't this isn't, riding off into the sunset. It looks like it is, but it's not.
So that was the only part. But other than that, it was a really good episode. And it was one where I'd actually missed a few episodes of Arrow, but I was able to pick back up quickly with this one. They didn't leave you lost. The acting was really good. And they did have a really good, jam-packed, action-filled show. And the thing that's neat about Arrow, Arrow and Flash are just tonally two different series. It's so much darker in Arrow. And yet they managed to make that shared universe work and make the visits back and forth work.
It proves the people that are making both of these shows know what they're doing, because they're able to make these two different shows, but they're able to make them so well. And kind of to hark back to Flash just for a second, as to another future possibility. You remember, I think it was 2 episodes back, where they talked about the missing pilot at the airfield.
Oh, yes.
That right there tells you that not only are they thinking about the Green Lantern, but which Green Lantern, and that would be Hal Jordan.
Right.
And of course, everyone knows, or in the comics, that Hal Jordan, Barry Allen, and even Oliver, they're all buddies.
Right.
So, this would be a perfect, down the road addition for them, because they've already dropped the Easter egg.
Really every iteration of Flash and Green Lantern has been buddies all the way through, from the Golden Age forward, whether it was Jay Garrick and Alan Scott, or Hal Jordan and Barry Allen, or Kyle Rayner and Wally West. They've always been buddies. And of course, there was that thing in the late 60s, early 70s that was a real classic Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams series with Green Arrow and Green Lantern. That's still one of the classics today, and it really changed comics back at the time to something a lot more socially relevant, which was something that had not been seen a lot in comics back then. So you've got a lot of history there for those guys to be friends. That would be very cool.
And then, of course, this finale has kind of left Team Arrow a little bit broken. We don't know what's going to happen with Diggle. He's going to probably hold a grudge for a while. So it's going to be interesting to see what exactly is going to bring this team back together, or if they are able to get back together.
It's going to be interesting to see how that series comes out. But
after 3 great seasons, I can't complain.
I really can't complain either, and I like what they're doing moving forward with the new series with all of them. What is that series going to be called? I don't remember.
DC's Legends of Tomorrow.
Legends, yeah. I'm very much looking forward to that.
And the trailer for that, I thought, gave us way more than I thought it would this soon. They're already ready. Oh, and real quick, at the end of that, also Ed, at the end of Arrow, we see the explosion at Palmer Industries,
right,
where he's trying to fiddle with his shrinking thing, and it explodes, and then we see a close up of them going through the debris, kind of like giving the viewership the idea that he's Honey, I Shrunk the Kid style, kind of lost in with all the rubble. He accidentally struck himself. But then, of course, in the trailer for Legends of Tomorrow, we see that by this point he has perfected it because he says, "Oh, I can do it." And they're like, "Whatever." And he goes, "All right, check it out," and does it and kind of flies off. And that was a really cool point of that trailer,
It was
too.
kind of interesting that they kind of blew that.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, well, obviously he's not dead because he's in this other series, and I don't know. I kind of didn't get the point of how they did that. They're like, oh, a dramatic ending. It was almost like CWPR just completely effed that up.
and I'm looking at the paper that Felicity signed would somehow maybe give Oliver back his company and down the road. I'm willing to bet.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I mean, overall, those are some of my favorite shows on television. Of course, Game of Thrones is probably at the top, but
it's pretty awesome.
I mean, it's great that we have all this content and it's all around superheroes, DC, Marvel, you name it. It's all good stuff, and we even have stuff coming down the pipeline. Got some indie titles. Got Valiant has a deal a 4-movie deal with.
I don't know which company it is.
Remember what the company was?
Oh, I can't remember. I can't remember if it was Sony or who they signed with. I forget now.
There's also a Preacher, I think, is being made into a series.
Yes,
yeah,
sure
TV
is.
show AMC.
And that book is cited by a whole lot of the best writers today as being the book that inspired them to become comic book writers.
Seth Rogen is producing it.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And of course, Fear the Walking Dead, I think, is this summer. I think.
Oh, that's going to be good too.
Is it this summer?
I think it is.
All right. I don't know. I thought that they would do it as a fall show, but.
And those who like the Heroes TV show, that's going to be coming back this summer as well.
Yeah, they are. Who's bringing that? Is Netflix bringing that back?
I think it's ABC.
Is it?
I think. Don't quote me on that.
That show keeps leaving and coming back, right?
I don't know, but that show after like the first season or second season, it was not very good. But the first season was amazing. That was the problem with that show.
What killed that show was the writers' strike happened mid second season, and then it kind of just it train wrecked that show from there on, pretty much.
Yeah. That's right, that did happen. Yep.
But I liked the concept of finding new ways to have superpowers, if you will. You know, just not just your generic old ice powers and all this stuff. They took it and put it on a twist, kind of like the Sony series Powers. I don't know if any of y'all watched all of that.
I haven't watched. I've heard it's really good.
I watched all of it, and it was pretty fantastic. In the same sense that they found more creative ways to come up with different powers that we haven't seen already 1,000 times.
Well, that's what you really have to look forward to. Lots of good stuff coming up. All these getting renewed. So we have some great TV to look forward to. Still got a while. We got the summer. Go watch some baseball, read some more comic books, do whatever. But we thought we'd bring you a special this week just to tell you all about our thoughts on some of the greatest TV shows we have in the comic book universe. And they are all fantastic. So if you haven't watched them, go get caught up this summer. They will be available to watch on your favorite streaming website service of choice. So, all right, thanks so much, everybody. Appreciate it. And that is it for our special Comic Weekend Review Television Edition. I'm Stephen McGauley, Editor-in-Chief at TM Stash, and that was Nick, Ed, Joe. Thanks so much, and we will see you next time. Keep reading the Stash.